Changez is Jamila's husband. They are married through an arranged marriage orchestrated by her father Anwar. Anwar wanted a son-in-law that would take over his corner shop and be a good husband for his daughter. When Changez arrives, they are all disappointed as it turns out he is overweight and only has one working hand. Jamila refuses to have any form of intimate relationship with him. Changez refuses to do any manual labor when he arrives in Britain. He doesn't want to be seen as some immigrant who works a job with minimum wage like a shopkeeper. I'm the intellectual type, not one of those uneducated immigrant types who come here to slave all day and night and look dirty. It's clearly important for him to be recognized as something more than just an immigrant, and he believes that for him to break out of this role, he needs to do something bigger than what is asked for him from his father-in-law. Changez is determined on convincing Jamila that they would be happy together if she would only give him a chance. After being turned down on several occasions, he turns to a prostitute called Chinko for the affection he so desperately seeks. Jamila and Changez never shares a bed, but his love for her is unconditional, and he joins her when she moves into a communal house. When Jamila gets a baby with Simon, one of the others living in the house, Changez is filled with joy and looks after the child as if it would be his own. Harun is Karim and Ali's father. He is originally from India but moved to Britain with Anwar in the 50s to study. He was never interested in his studies and spent most of his time in the bar drinking. He eventually dropped out of school and took a job as a civil service clerk. When he came to Britain, he met Karim's mother, Margaret. After meeting her, he took up an interest for Eastern philosophy. Harun came from a wealthy family in India and hadn't done any cooking or cleaning before he arrived in England. Harun and Margaret's marriage seems very stale, and early in the book it becomes clear that he's having an affair with another woman called Eva. They split up after Margaret finally admits to herself that her husband is having a relationship with another woman. Eva begins to host parties where Harun guides with white upper middle class people in yoga and meditation. Karim is fascinated over the control his father has over people and begins to refer to him as God. The relationship between Karim and Harun turns sour when he leaves his mother, as Karim blames his father for ruining their family and hurting his mother to the point where she doesn't want to leave her bed. Harun isn't supportive of Karim's acting career in the beginning, and is ashamed when Karim performs in a play called The Jungle Book. Towards the end of the novel, Karim begins to view his father more as a real person, not just a father figure. Harun quits his job and starts counseling unhappy people about the Eastern philosophy, which seemed to be the perfect job for him. Harun and Eva moves to London, and it's here that he seems to realize the mistakes he made in leaving Margaret and splitting up his family. Even though he realizes these mistakes, he stays by Eva's side and they declare their plans of getting married. Eva is at first Harun's mistress and later his girlfriend and wife-to-be. Margaret, Karim's mother, dislikes Eva as she finds her distasteful. Karim is unsure of what he makes of her, but she is the only person over the age of 30 that he feels he can really talk to. Eva is very ambitious. She is confident that her son Charlie will be successful as a singer. She also wants to push Harun's Eastern wisdom into communal spiritual practice. Together they move to London. Eva is described as a social climber and she hosts parties and spends her money in a way to boost her social climbing. Karim is bothered by Eva's habit of irrationally spending money on things she can't afford. In the beginning of the book, Eva is very confident and seems to manipulate those around her. This changes when she realizes that Harun still cares about Margaret's well-being, that he is bothered by the fact that she begins to date other men. She loses much of her confidence and gets angry at Harun. Throughout the novel, Eva remains devoted to Charlie. She knows that Charlie is stealing from her to pay for his drug use, but she ignores it rather than confronting him about it. She uses Charlie in her pursuit of a higher social rank as she takes part in many interviews about what it's like to be his mother. Charlie is Eva's son and Karim's crush and idol. He is a year older than Karim and is treated like a superstar at school. Charlie is described as both good-looking and charming, but Kareem quickly learns that Charlie is very manipulative and cruel. He never returns the affection he's given by Kareem, even after they share a very intimate experience. After the two argue, Charlie throws Kareem into a drum set, which leads to Kareem bleeding. By the time Haroon and Kareem moves in at Eva's house, Charlie has dropped out of school. When his success as a singer stagnates, he turns to drugs and steals from his mother to fund his addiction. Eva ignores it, but when Charlie steals Kareem's shirts, he feels a resentment towards Charlie. We see a turning point for Charlie when they go to see a punk show. At first they mock the performance, but Charlie quickly identifies with the aesthetics and sentiment of the punk genre. After Charlie turns to punk rock, his fame skyrockets and his first album is very successful. Charlie moves to New York as he feels there isn't anything left for him to do in London. It's here that Charlie realizes that he isn't a great musician and that he doesn't have the abilities to be called one of the greats, and he seems to be just fine with that. Kareem lives in New York with Charlie for a bit and works as his assistant. The relationship isn't what it once was. Kareem no longer cares for Charlie and decides to go back to London after Charlie hires a dominatrix to shame him and is eager for Kareem to join. Auntie Jane is Margaret's sister and Uncle Ted is her husband. They live in an expensive part of Chislehurst, despite Uncle Ted owning a central heating company with little success. Uncle Ted has a close relationship to Haroon. Their interactions mostly consist of Uncle Ted fixing things in Haroon's house while he gives Ted advice. When the two found out about Haroon's affair with Eva, Ted is forced to step in and stop the affair. This ends with Haroon convincing Ted that he works too much and Ted quits his job. Pikey is one of the biggest theatre directors in London. He discovers Kareem after seeing him in the Jungle Book play. Pikey wants Kareem to take part in his next play and Kareem is eager to do so, despite Shadwell, the man that brought Kareem into acting, warning Kareem about Pikey's unpredictable behavior and goes as far to say that Pikey would destroy Kareem. Kareem later discovers how Shadwell would be right in his warning. Pikey plays mind games with his actors and after a show in New York, he reveals his predictions about which of the actors will sleep with each other. When he reveals that he had predicted that Kareem and Eleanor would sleep together, Kareem is filled with anger and sadness as he realizes that Pikey had orchestrated their relationship. Pikey and his wife Marlene invited Kareem and Eleanor to partake in group sex with them. When Pikey tries forcing Kareem to give him oral sex, as well as his interest in sleeping with Eleanor becomes apparent, Kareem's admiration for Pikey quickly fades. The relationship between Kareem and Pikey could indicate that Pikey is the novel's protagonist. Eleanor is Kareem's biggest love throughout the novel. They met through theater. She is very depressed, which Kareem later finds out stems from her last boyfriend committing suicide. Kareem does what he can to give her the affection she needs, but he struggles to give her the praise and compliment needed to fight her self-hatred. Eleanor hides the fact that her parents are rich and famous and that she spent her upbringing in private schools and in Italy. Kareem's and Eleanor's relationship ends when she tells him that she's been sleeping with Pikey and intends to keep doing so. This truly crushes Kareem as he was deeply in love with her. Sexuality plays a big part of the novel as well. Throughout the book there are many ongoing relationships from Haroon and Eva to all of Kareem's different relationships with both guys and girls. It's clear that Kareem is unsure of his sexuality, but it doesn't seem to scare him or make him feel weird. It would seem that he is bisexual, but he never puts a label on it. From a young age, Kareem has never had a problem with his sexuality. Dad taught me to flirt with everyone I met, girls and boys alike, and I came to see the charm rather than courtesy or honesty or even decency as the primary social grace. And I even came to like people who were courteous or vicious provided they were interesting. It's clear that Kareem isn't the only sexual character in the novel from this quote. His father's relationship with Eva is often mentioned. I found a book in his briefcase with illustrations of Chinese sexual positions, which included mandarin ducks entwined. This quote refers to Kareem finding illustrations in his father's briefcase. Kareem isn't disgusted with his discovery. He is fascinated by the fact that his father seemed to share Kareem's outlook on sex. There are multiple possible themes in the novel. I personally believe the theme that stands out the most is identity and the everlasting struggle of finding yourself. This can be recognized through the characters' struggle of accepting who they are and how they are viewed by those around them. All the characters have in some shape or form problems accepting who they are in their own mind and how they are viewed by those around them.